The Child of the Guru by David Russo. Chapter 1. A Quiet Birth. The night the child was born, the sky over the village shimmered with a strange stillness. Clouds had vanished as if pulled away by unseen hands, and the moon hung enormous and pale, encircled by faint rings of light. The elders said such a halo meant a spirit was crossing into the world. Inside a small thatched house near the edge of the rice fields, a young woman labored quietly. No cries, no shouting, only the steady rhythm of her breathing and the whisper of the wind through the bamboo walls. Her husband knelt beside her, a hand on her shoulder, eyes flickering between fear and awe. When at last the child entered the world, he did not wail. He opened his eyes, wide, black, and still, and looked around the room as though he had been waiting there all along. "Why doesn't he cry?" the midwife whispered, her hands frozen in mid-motion. The mother smiled faintly. "Because he has nothing to fear." Outside, the night insects had gone silent. Even the wind seemed to pause, listening. Then, as if reassured by the calm that spread through the little house, a nightjar sang once more, and the world began to breathe again. The father leaned closer to his newborn son. "He watches everything," he murmured. "Like he understands already." The midwife crossed herself and muttered a prayer. "A child who enters the world without a cry. Such souls carry old knowledge. You must be careful." But the mother only cradled him tighter. "He is calm because the world is kind to him. Let's not frighten him with omens." The baby blinked slowly, his gaze moving between the flickering oil lamp and the midwife's trembling hands. A faint smile, or something like it, touched his lips. From that moment, the village seemed subtly changed. The morning after his birth, the old banyan tree behind the house shed a soft rain of leaves, though no wind stirred. Birds gathered on the rooftops, calling in unfamiliar patterns. The villagers, curious and cautious, began to whisper. "The air feels different," one farmer said as he carried water to the fields. "Have you seen his eyes?" asked another. "They look straight through you." "Perhaps he was born under a wandering star," an elder suggested. As days passed, the rumors softened into wonder. The child hardly ever cried. He would lie awake for hours, staring at the play of sunlight on the walls, as if listening to something no one else could hear. When his mother hummed lullabies, he would turn his head toward her voice, not for comfort, but for meaning. One evening, as his father sat by the doorway carving a small wooden toy, he said quietly, "He doesn't seem like other babies. When I hold him, I feel quiet inside, like the world slows down." The mother smiled. "Then maybe he is a gift, not to us, but to the silence we have forgotten." And somewhere beyond the hills, the same moon that watched his birth began to wane, its silver light fading gently, as if bowing to a new presence on earth. The villagers did not know it yet, but a teacher had come among them, a child who spoke not with words, but with the stillness of his being. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Wind. The boy grew like a young tree by the river, quietly, steadily, as if time itself moved around him rather than through him. By his 3rd year, he wandered often into the fields beyond the village, where the tall grasses swayed and the wind hummed secret tunes. He loved the wind most of all. When it slipped between the palms and rustled the leaves, he would stand still, head tilted, as though listening to an invisible friend. "Do you hear it again?" his mother asked one morning, watching him from the doorway. He nodded, eyes half closed. "The wind is saying something." She smiled indulgently. "And what does it say today?" He frowned a little, concentrating. "It says, 'Don't be afraid.'" His mother laughed softly, shaking her head. "Then it must be a kind wind." But as she turned away, she couldn't shake the chill that lingered in the air, not from fear, but from a strange reverence. The boy's words felt less like play and more like memory, as if he was repeating something he already knew. Often, he would sit by the riverbank and toss small pebbles into the current, watching the ripples merge and disappear. The villagers thought him odd, a child who preferred silence over games, who smiled at trees and spoke to birds. One afternoon, a group of children called to him. "Come chase us, dream boy," they teased. But when he didn't answer, they lost interest and ran off toward the mango grove. The boy stayed where he was, eyes fixed on the clouds drifting across the sun. The wind picked up again, swirling dust around his bare feet. He whispered, "You're sad today." A sudden gust swept through, bending the reeds almost flat, and for a moment he thought he heard a sigh, deep, old, and tired. He looked up at the hills and felt, without knowing why, that everything, the wind, the grass, the birds, was alive and listening. That evening, his father found him sitting beneath the banyan tree. "You've been out here all day," the man said, brushing dirt from the boy's hair. "Aren't you lonely?" The boy looked up at him with calm eyes. "How can I be lonely when the wind is talking?" His father chuckled. "And what does it talk about?" "About people," the boy said simply. "It tells me what they feel when they don't say it." The father fell silent. He didn't understand, yet something in his son's voice kept him from dismissing it. As night settled, the wind changed again, cooler, gentler. It rustled through the leaves like a lullaby. The boy closed his eyes, listening. He could sense the emotions in the air, the quiet worries of his mother, the pride and confusion of his father, the laughter of the children carried from distant courtyards. All of it blended into one great, breathing sound. He whispered to the darkness, "Everything has a voice." A firefly drifted past, glowing faintly in the dusk. The boy reached out but didn't touch it. He only watched as it blinked and vanished into the night. And in that small, silent moment, the world seemed to lean closer to him. The rivers, the trees, the unseen spirits of air, whispering, as they always did, to the one who truly listened. Chapter 3. The First Teacher. The year the boy turned 5, a wandering monk came to the village. He arrived on a cool morning, walking barefoot along the dusty path, his robes faded by sun and travel. The villagers gathered to watch him. Few strangers ever passed through their quiet valley. He bowed to each person with a faint smile, accepting a bowl of rice here, a cup of water there. But when his eyes fell on the boy sitting beneath the banyan tree, he stopped. The child was tracing patterns in the dirt with a stick, humming softly to himself. Not a song exactly, but a rhythm that seemed to follow the wind's breath. The monk approached and sat nearby without a word. For a long while, they remained in silence, the only sound the rustling of leaves overhead. Finally, the monk said gently, "You listen well." The boy looked up, surprised. "How do you know?" "Because the wind stops for you," the monk said with a small smile. "It waits for your answer." The boy tilted his head. "It speaks to everyone. Most people just don't listen." The monk laughed, a deep, warm sound that echoed like a drum in the still air. "And do you understand what it says?" "Sometimes," the boy said. "It tells me when people are happy or sad. It told me you were coming." The monk's eyes brightened. "Then it must have told you why I came." The boy shook his head. "No, the wind doesn't tell everything." The monk nodded thoughtfully. "Good. The world would be too noisy if it did." He leaned closer. "Do you want to know the first lesson of the wind?" The boy waited. "Listen before you speak," the monk said softly. "Most people speak to be heard. The wise listen to understand." The boy repeated the words under his breath, as if tasting them. "Listen before you speak." For a moment, neither said anything. Then the boy asked, "And what if there's nothing to say after listening?" The monk's eyes gleamed. "Then you've learned twice, once from the world and once from yourself." The boy smiled faintly. "I think I already knew that." "Perhaps," the monk said, rising to his feet. "But knowing and living are not the same." He adjusted the strap of his satchel and began walking toward the river. The boy followed him a few steps. "Will you come back?" The monk turned, his shadow stretching long across the path. "I will not need to," he said. "A true teacher plants one seed and trusts the earth to remember." Then he bowed to the boy, not as a man bows to a child, but as one soul bows to another. That evening, the boy sat in silence while his parents spoke over dinner. When his father asked about his day, he only smiled and listened. Later, as the wind moved softly through the open window, he whispered the monk's words again. "Listen before you speak." The phrase settled deep within him, not as instruction, but as truth. The wind brushed his face, and for the first time, he didn't try to understand it. He simply listened. And the world, it seemed, grew quiet with him. Chapter 4. Shadows and Play. By the time the boy was 6, he had become part of the village's rhythm, known by every farmer, goat herder, and child. The elders said he was too calm for his age, too thoughtful. The children said he was strange but kind, always watching instead of rushing, listening instead of shouting. He liked to play near the banyan tree, where the shade was cool and the roots twisted like sleeping snakes. There, The village children gathered to build castles from mud, to chase one another through the dust, to laugh and cry and quarrel. The boy joined them sometimes, not to win or boast, but to feel the pulse of their joy. One afternoon, they played a game of coco, running in circles around the old tree. The sun was fierce, sweat glistened on their faces. A small girl named Lila tripped and fell, scraping her knee. The others laughed, not cruelly, but thoughtlessly, and kept running. The boy stopped, knelt beside her, and offered his hand. "Does it hurt?" he asked. She nodded, tears trembling on her lashes. He blew gently on the wound, whispering, "The wind says pain is only a visitor." She blinked, confused but comforted. "What does that mean?" "It means it won't stay long," he said with a small smile. When the other children noticed, they began to whisper. "He's talking to the wind again," one boy said. "Maybe he thinks he's better than us." The boy heard them, but said nothing. He only helped Lila to her feet. Still, a strange heaviness filled his chest, a feeling he didn't yet have a name for. Later that day, while the others played near the well, he saw one of the older boys, Ranu, steal a small clay flute that belonged to another child. The boy's heart quickened. Ranu slipped it into his tunic, glancing around guiltily. The boy stepped forward. "Ranu," he said quietly, "that isn't yours." Ranu froze, then scowled. "Mind your own business, silent one. But it's wrong to take what isn't given." Ranu's eyes flashed. "And who made you the keeper of what's right?" The boy hesitated. He could feel the anger in Ranu, the shame hiding behind it. He remembered the monk's words, "Listen before you speak." So he said nothing more. That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, he sat by the river, troubled. For the first time, he felt the pull of two voices inside him, one that wanted to speak the truth and another that told him to wait. When he told his mother about it, she listened patiently. "What will you do?" she asked. "I don't know," he said softly. "If I tell the others, Ranu will be shamed. If I stay silent, it feels like a lie." His mother smiled gently. "Sometimes the heart must learn its own balance. Not every truth needs to be spoken aloud, but it should always be seen clearly inside you." The boy thought about that long after she had gone to sleep. He closed his eyes and listened to the wind moving through the open window. "What would you do?" he whispered. The wind answered with a long sigh through the trees. And though he couldn't understand its words, he felt the meaning settle in him. That light could only be born from knowing the shadows. The next morning, Ranu returned the flute without a word. No one asked why, but when their eyes met, the boy saw something had changed in both of them. They had looked into the same darkness, and both had chosen to turn toward the light. And for the first time, the boy understood that to bring peace to others, he must first make peace with the storms within himself. Chapter 5. The Mirror of the Mind. One golden afternoon, after the rains had passed, the boy wandered beyond the village paths, following the sound of frogs and crickets. The fields shimmered with fresh water, and the air smelled of wet earth and growing things. He walked until he reached a small pond ringed by reeds and wildflowers, a place he had never seen before. He knelt beside the water, cupping his hands to drink. As the ripples faded, he saw his reflection looking back, wide, steady eyes, a faint smile, a breeze moving through his dark hair. For a long while, he simply stared. When his mother found him there later, she smiled. "Ah, so this is where you've been hiding. I've been calling you since noon." He didn't look away from the water. "Amma," he said quietly, "why does the water show me my face?" She knelt beside him, puzzled. "Because that's what it does, my son. Still water becomes a mirror." "But is that me?" he asked, pointing to the reflection. "Or is that only what the water thinks I am?" His mother laughed softly. "You're full of strange questions again. The one in the water looks like you, doesn't he?" "Yes," the boy said, frowning slightly. "But when I move, he moves. When I smile, he smiles. He never disagrees with me." His mother brushed his hair back from his forehead. "Maybe that's the gift of reflection. It shows what you already know." When she left, the boy stayed by the pond until dusk. He watched as the sky turned crimson, and his reflection deepened with the coming darkness. He saw the shadow of his own face swallowed by night, until there was nothing left but ripples and stars. He whispered, "If the water shows me what I look like, what shows me what I am inside?" The wind stirred the surface, breaking his reflection into pieces. For a moment, he felt an odd sadness, the kind that comes when a truth is too big to hold. Just then, A familiar voice startled him. It was Ranu, the older boy from the village, carrying a bundle of sticks. "What are you doing here alone?" Ranu asked. "Talking to myself," the boy said. "Or maybe to the water." Ranu peered into the pond and grinned. "Then you're talking to your own face. Does it answer you back?" The boy smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But today it's quiet." Ranu sat down beside him, tossing a pebble into the pond. "My reflection looks better when I smile," he said proudly. The boy watched the ripples spread outward. "Smiles change the water," he said. "So maybe they change more than we think." Rana chuckled. "You say strange things, but I like them." They sat in silence for a while, listening to frogs and the whisper of the reeds. As the moon rose, the boy gazed once more at his reflection, calm now, whole again. And he thought of something the wandering monk had told him long ago: listen before you speak. Maybe, he thought, the pond was another teacher, one that listened perfectly and spoke only through the truth it reflected. When he finally stood to leave, he looked down one last time and said softly, "If I am not the reflection, then I must be the one who sees it." And the water, catching the light of the moon, shimmered as if it understood. Chapter 6: The Secret Garden. One morning, while chasing a butterfly along a narrow path behind the fields, the boy discovered a small gap between two old stone walls covered in ivy. He pushed through the tangle of vines and stepped into a place that felt untouched by time. A hidden garden, quiet and alive. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and damp earth. Sunlight spilled through the branches in trembling patterns. Everywhere he looked, life thrived. Moss on stones, dragonflies hovering like shards of glass, flowers nodding as if in greeting. He stood still, listening. The garden spoke without sound. The rustle of leaves was a whisper, the buzzing of bees a soft chant. He could feel the same rhythm in his own heartbeat. "So this is where the wind comes to rest," he murmured. He wandered deeper, his bare feet brushing through ferns. A small pond shimmered in the center, ringed by lotuses. Birds fluttered from branch to branch, unafraid of him. One alighted near his hand, a tiny green sunbird with a curved beak. It tilted its head, studying him. "Hello," the boy said gently. "Do you live here?" The bird chirped once, almost like an answer, then flew off, leaving a single feather behind. He picked it up and held it to the light. It glowed like an emerald flame. Every day after that, the boy returned to the hidden garden. Sometimes he sat in silence. Sometimes he hummed songs to the flowers, watching their petals tremble as if listening. Other times, he lay on his back and watched clouds drift above the trees, wondering if the sky knew about this secret place. One afternoon, his mother noticed the dirt on his feet and the streaks of green on his hands. "Where do you go every day, my son?" she asked. "To a place that feels like breathing," he said. She smiled. "And what do you find there?" He thought for a moment. "Everything, and nothing that can be named." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You sound like the monk who visited years ago. Be careful, or you'll start teaching before you've grown." But he only smiled. "Maybe the world is already teaching me." That evening, when the light began to fade, he returned once more to the garden. The flowers were closing their petals, and the crickets were beginning their song. He sat beside the pond, dipping his fingers into the cool water. Tiny ripples spread outward, and he watched how they touched every edge, every petal floating on the surface. "So we are all connected," he whispered. "Even the smallest touch moves the whole." The wind stirred gently, bending the grass around him. He could almost feel the garden breathe with him, its pulse in the earth, its quiet joy in the air. For the first time, he felt not like a visitor, but like part of its living pattern. When he finally rose to leave, the moon was rising above the treetops. He looked back at the hidden place, its shadows, its stillness, and said softly, "Thank you." The garden answered with a single falling leaf that landed at his feet. He picked it up, smiling, and tucked it behind his ear. As he walked home under the silver light, he carried with him the calm of the secret garden, a calm that would stay within him, growing quietly, like roots beneath the soil of his heart. Chapter 7: A Lesson in Silence. Word of the boy's strange calmness had spread through the nearby villages. Some said he could hear the thoughts of trees. Others whispered that he had been born under a wandering star. Most dismissed such talk as superstition, until one afternoon, when a scholar came to visit. He arrived on a bullock cart, wearing white robes and carrying a scroll tied with red thread. His eyes were sharp, his voice heavy with learning. The villagers gathered in the square to greet him, and someone mentioned the boy, a child who speaks to the wind. The scholar said, arching an eyebrow, "Let me see him." The boy was brought to the gathering, standing shyly beside his mother. The scholar studied him for a long moment, then smiled indulgently. "So, young one, they say you have wisdom beyond your years. Tell me, what is truth?" The boy looked at him, but said nothing. The scholar chuckled. "Perhaps that is too much to ask a child. Let me make it simple. What do you know of the gods?" Still, the boy remained silent. The villagers began to shift uneasily. His mother whispered, "Speak, my son. The man has come from far away." But the boy only looked toward the horizon, where a breeze was stirring the tall grass. The scholar's face darkened. "You refuse to answer? Or do you not understand?" The boy's father stepped forward apologetically. "He is not being rude, sir. He is thoughtful." The scholar sighed and rolled up his scroll. Thoughtfulness without speech is emptiness. Wisdom must be spoken, or it is nothing. He turned to leave. The villagers bowed politely, murmuring apologies. Only the boy's mother looked back at her son, confused and a little disappointed. That evening, she found him sitting by the riverbank, his feet dangling in the water. The sky was fading from orange to violet, and the air hummed with the sound of crickets. "Why wouldn't you speak?" she asked softly, sitting beside him. He looked at her with calm eyes. "Because I didn't know the answer." "But you could have said something," she said gently. "Even silence can be misunderstood." He smiled faintly. "Then I have learned something about silence." She tilted her head. "And what is that?" "That silence has its own meaning," he said. "When the wind pauses, the trees still understand. When the river is still, the fish do not forget how to swim." His mother watched him quietly, the evening light soft on his face. "Perhaps you're right," she said. "But the world often listens only to those who speak." He nodded. "Then I will learn to speak when silence is finished teaching me." The moon rose, spilling silver light across the river. The boy closed his eyes, feeling the cool air brush against his face. In his quiet, he could sense everything: his mother's worry, the patience of the river, the stillness of the stars. And in that moment, he understood what the scholar could not: that silence is not the absence of words, but the space where truth gathers its voice. When they walked home together, his mother took his hand. She said nothing more, and neither did he. But between them flowed a quiet so deep that even the wind dared not disturb it. Chapter 8: The Festival of Lights. The village came alive with colors, lanterns, and the scent of marigolds. It was the Festival of Lights, a celebration of harvest and hope, when the streets glowed with flames and laughter echoed from every corner. The boy, now 7, wandered through the throngs of villagers, feeling the pulse of the celebration, but seeing something deeper beneath the bright masks of joy. "Look at this one," shouted a child nearby, holding up a small clay lamp. The flame wavered as the wind blew, flickering like a heartbeat. "It's mine. Mine." The boy watched quietly. He noticed the child's eyes dart toward others, measuring, comparing, desiring. Behind the smile was a tiny shadow of greed, quickly hidden by laughter. A man carrying a basket of sweets passed by. "Try one, boy," he said. "It's free." The boy shook his head politely. "Thank you, sir," he said, "but I am not hungry." The man frowned. "Strange child. Even at festivals, you do not enjoy simple pleasures?" "I enjoy," the boy replied softly, "but some joys are quiet." The man only shrugged and walked away. The boy moved on, noticing a group of women lighting lanterns. Their faces glowed with smiles, but their hands trembled slightly as they tried to steady the flames. He saw a shadow of fear in their eyes, fear that the wind would extinguish their light, that the night would swallow their efforts. He bent to whisper to the lanterns, as if they could hear him. "You are strong. Shine." Nearby, Ranu, the older boy, ran past, waving a small drum. "Come on, dance with us," he shouted. The boy followed, stepping carefully through the throng. He observed the villagers as they danced, sang, and laughed. The faces that seemed joyful to an outsider told different stories to him: worry hidden behind smiles, longing tucked beneath celebration, sadness masked with cheer. "Why do they hide it?" Ranu asked between beats. "Why pretend?" "They are afraid someone will not understand," the boy said. or that someone might see too much. Rana frowned. But isn't it better to be honest? Sometimes, the boy said thoughtfully. Sometimes, the truth needs patience. Understanding must come before words. As night fell, the river that ran beside the village sparkled with hundreds of floating lamps. Each one carried a wish, a hope, or a silent prayer. The boy knelt at the riverbank, watching the lights drift gently downstream. He sensed the mixture of joy and longing in each flicker, felt the secret stories of those he had never spoken to. A girl sitting nearby whispered, "Do you make wishes too?" The boy shook his head. "I watch them. Sometimes that is enough. I can feel their wishes without asking for one of my own." The girl tilted her head, curious. "How?" He smiled faintly. "Because the river listens, and the wind carries their hearts to me." As the last of the lamps floated out of sight, the boy rose. The festival roared around him, laughter, singing, drums, and the smell of sweet cakes. But he carried a quiet within him, like a flame protected from the wind. He understood more about people that night than any song or dance could teach. That joy and pain often coexist, that empathy is seeing beyond the surface, and that wisdom is not just knowing, but feeling. Ranu ran up beside him, panting. "Come, the fireworks are about to start." The boy nodded, letting the boyish excitement mingle with the calm he had cultivated. As the sky exploded in colors, he felt the heartbeat of the village, its light and shadow, its laughter and longing, all flowing through him. And in that vibrant moment, he realized, to understand the world, one must first notice what is hidden behind the brightest of lights. Chapter 9. The First Challenge. It was a hot afternoon when the boy wandered to the village square, the sun warming the stones beneath his feet. Children were playing tag, their laughter ringing like bells. As he approached, he noticed a commotion near the granary. "Hey, that's mine," shouted a small boy, pointing at a loaf of bread. Another child, a boy slightly older than him, held the loaf behind his back, eyes wide with fear and guilt. I just wanted a bite," he stammered. The boy stepped closer, his heart tightening. He recognized Ranu among the crowd. Ranu, the friend he had shared many afternoons with in the secret garden. "What's happening?" he asked softly. Rana hesitated, looking down. I took the bread, but I don't want anyone to know." The boy knelt beside him. "Ranu, stealing is wrong. But you are afraid." "What?" "I was hungry," Ranu admitted, voice trembling. "I didn't mean to. I just—" The boy looked at the crowd, which had grown silent, waiting. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "people make mistakes because they forget who they are or what they are capable of." The other children stared at him, curious. "What should we do?" asked the small boy, still clutching his loaf. The boy took a deep breath. "Rana must return what he took," he said gently. "It is the right thing. But he must also be forgiven, so he can learn without fear." Ranu's eyes welled up. I will." He stepped forward, handing back the bread. "I am sorry. I won't do it again." The boy nodded. "See? Courage is not in hiding mistakes. Courage is in facing them." The small boy looked hesitant, then nodded, accepting the apology. "I forgive you," he said. A few children muttered and scattered, but the boy stayed by Ranu's side. "Do you feel better?" he asked. Ranu smiled faintly, wiping his nose. "Yes, and scared, but also lighter." The boy placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is what honesty feels like. And forgiveness, it makes the heart calm, even when the world seems harsh." Later, sitting beside the river, the boy reflected on what had happened. Ranu was afraid of what others might think. He said quietly to himself. But he had the chance to choose, and he chose truth. Wisdom is not just knowing what is right. It is having the courage to act. The wind stirred the surface of the water, as if agreeing with him. The boy watched the ripples dance across the reflection of the sky. He thought of the lessons he had learned from the pond, the secret garden, and the whispers of the wind. Each had taught him something new about patience, observation, and the quiet strength within. When he returned home that evening, his mother asked, "What did you learn today?" He looked up at her, eyes steady and calm. "I learned that even small actions carry great weight, and that the heart grows when we choose kindness and courage, even in the smallest matters." His mother smiled, brushing his hair from his forehead. "You are learning fast, my son. Remember, wisdom is not just knowledge, it is the way you live." As he lay down to sleep that night, the The boy felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He knew that the lessons of honesty, courage, and compassion would stay with him forever, guiding him on the path that would one day lead far beyond the village. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the first stirrings of destiny, whispering that the world outside would soon call him to face even greater choices. Chapter 10: Dreams Beyond the Village. The boy lay beneath the window of his small room, the soft moonlight spilling across the wooden floor. His eyes were open, but sleep pressed gently upon him. That night, as often happened, he drifted into a dream. Yet this dream felt different. He found himself standing on a hill overlooking a vast landscape he had never seen. Rivers wound like silver ribbons through green valleys. Mountains rose like guardians against the sky, and forests stretched farther than the eye could follow. The air smelled of rain and earth, carrying voices that seemed both strange and familiar. A voice, soft and echoing, spoke from nowhere and everywhere at once. You are meant to walk beyond what you know. But first, you must understand the world within. The boy turned, searching for the source, but the hill was empty. Who are you? He asked. I am the whisper of your path, the voice replied. The journey that calls you will ask for patience, courage, and kindness. Are you ready? He paused, feeling the wind brush against his face like an invitation. I think so, he said softly, but I do not know what awaits me. Then you must learn to see, the voice said. Not just with your eyes, but with your heart. The boy stepped forward, and the ground beneath him shifted into a bridge over a rushing river. He could see fish darting beneath the surface and birds flying high above. It is beautiful, he whispered. Yes, the voice said, but beauty is not always safe. The world has shadows as well as light. You will meet both. He felt a tremor of fear, but pressed on. Along the riverbank, he saw villagers, people he knew, carrying baskets, working fields, and laughing in the sun. Yet some faces were etched with sorrow, some hearts were heavy with worry. He realized that even happiness carried hidden struggles. A small boy appeared beside him in the dream. Will it be scary? The boy asked, voice trembling. I do not know, the dream boy admitted. But we can be brave together. The first boy reached out and took his hand. The connection warmed him. Then we will go, he said. The landscape shifted again, and suddenly he was back in his room, moonlight soft on the floorboards. But the memory of the dream lingered. Mountains, rivers, voices, and the whisper of destiny. He sat up and spoke softly to himself. The world is calling me. One day, I will see it. One day, I will learn all it has to teach. The next morning, he walked to the edge of the village, looking beyond the fields to the distant hills. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and soil. He touched the stone wall that bordered the fields, feeling the rough texture under his fingers. I will go, he murmured. But I must be ready. I must carry what I've learned here with me. His mother called from the doorway, holding a basket of bread. Where are you wandering so early, my son? He smiled, still lost in thought. I am thinking, mother, about what lies beyond the hills. She watched him for a long moment, her eyes full of both pride and worry. The world is wide, she said gently. Remember who you are, wherever you go. I will, he promised. And I will remember what I have learned. Kindness, courage, and patience. They will be my guide. That night, he lay down again and dreamed once more of rivers, mountains, and strange lands. But this time, the fear had lessened. He felt a quiet determination in his chest, a knowledge that the journey ahead was not just about the places he would see, but the wisdom he would carry with him. And so, with the first stirrings of curiosity and destiny, the boy, the child of the village, the child of the wind, the child of the stars, began to awaken to the life that lay beyond the familiar fields, knowing that one day he would answer the call of the world.